Good afternoon. This is Media Center, Ukraine, Odessa. Our next briefing is dedicated to the termination of the grain agreement and that terminated on the 17th of July. And the very next day, Russia started shelling Odessa and the region of Odessa with its ports. Our current speaker is Pavlo Koval, General Director of the Ukrainian Agrarian Confederation. Good afternoon. The termination of the grain deal, how will it affect Ukrainian agrarians? And is it possible to restore a new grain deal or to have the new grain deal without Russia? That has already been mentioned by Ukraine and was hinted in Turkey. Yes, you're perfectly right. We need to analyze several scenarios without grain deal, with a grain deal, but with a new format, and when we ignore the statements of Russia and work in the format of grain deal, but without the Russia Federation, so to say, our partner in this grain deal. And I would like to express my respect to the residents of Odessa and the southern region in general. That was a massive attack overnight with different missiles like Onyx caliber and UAVs. It's great that no one has been severely hurt. As for grain deal, we had the last year experience when agrarians worked without grain corridors. That was rather difficult, but back then we had time to develop several procedures, logistics channel and mechanisms to make it possible to work without marine ports. That was difficult, and there were like 14 railway points and railroad PCPs with the borders with other countries, and we were able to reach a significant amount of our export, like over like several millions. But still, that's not the best result, but this is the result still. There is some room for improvements. We have some additional possibilities to work through the Danube River. This is in case when the seaports are fully closed. Two ports of the Big Odesa did not work, and the port of Pivdeni has been out of operation for the last 2 months because of Russia, but formally there was still the green corridor. So there are some statements and letters that the Russian the Russia has sent to different countries as for examination of vessels, etc. To be honest, we should not just close the topic in haste, because on Monday and on Tuesday, that was the information attack on Putin from other parties, including his opponents and partners, starting with the EU, the United States, European countries, China, Turkey, and the UN. And this is actually his goal. He wanted to be persuaded. He wants different leaders to talk to him, and he just raises the stakes by shelling Odessa seaports, Odessa ports overnight, and there are bulk and oil terminals that have been damaged in Odessa. And on Monday, there was the case with the Crimean Bridge, and there is no official statement about this case. There is no official opinion, and this is somehow synchronized. But before the bridge, they still shelter our port facilities, and before that, Erdogan allowed the commanders from Azovstal to return to Ukraine. So this is the whole political game, and there are different responses of different parties. But there is the same style of the Russian Federation, which is a terrorist approach. So, for example, they attacked the ammonium compressor station. And when Russia says about pulling out of the Green Deal, they start at once shelling the ports, which is the part of the deal. Our president on Monday said that Ukraine could continue grain corridors without involvement of the Russian Federation. And now this is the question to the behavior of our partners, how they will respond to these proposals. We are interested in such countries as Turkey, because we speak about Bosphorus Strait and the necessity of military convoy. And Turkey already offered to provide its own vessels for unloading. But we need to understand if the whole world is ready for this. Perhaps Ukraine could agree, but Ukraine needs to consult with other partners. And there is the international platform, the UN. This is not a military platform, but it is responsible for food safety, humanitarian aid, etc. That's why we need to understand that these scenarios and the models will be developed in the future. This is most likely because on Monday, during one trade sessions, we saw increased futures in Chicago foreign exchange by 10%. And this means that we will see the volatility of prices on the international level, and they will be important for the whole world. If we analyze green corridors, out of 33 million of agrarian products, 60% were sent to African countries, to Asian countries, and 40 countries, if I'm not mistaken, were covered by that. That was the grain initiative of the president of Ukraine. And he has also stated there is a concern of a range of countries from Spain to Bangladesh, from China to Somalia, when without Ukrainian wheat, corn, sunflower oil, and other products, the country can face some challenges. On the fifth day of since the start of the full-scale invasion, the Pakistan companies bought wheat for 536 USDs per ton. These games are bad because the gross harvest has been decreasing for 2 years now, but there is difficulties with its supply to other countries, and Putin will try to affect this. When it comes to the price, the domestic price for agrarian products, if the logistics becomes too difficult, the domestic prices will decrease. Dear colleagues, yes, I wanted to just ask about reserves. Last years, it was up to 2 million. 2 million of transshipment of agrarian products were through other points and waves, and I understand that there can be an increased capacity of the Danube ports. And I have a question about road and railway routes of supply of Ukrainian wheat to the international market. Yes, you're right when you mentioned Danube. In Ukrainian navigations, there are barges, river, sea, and I think it's clear for you. As for the railway transportation, and only 13 border crossing points are for wheat out of 14, so there might be some investments for developing capacity there. And we have also organizational reserves. We need to create, we should not create queues at the border crossing points, at the railway stations in western Ukraine, Khmelnytsky region, Zakarpattia, etc. We have proposals. We need tools, including automated tools. We have proposed this to our European colleagues since on the 20th of May, the solidarity lanes, that was a complex document by the European Commission that was adopted, and this allows to develop additional routes. We have an unpleasant fact. This is a Polish case with embargo, but the tool that we are offering will also help our European friends to better understand the amount of goods, the transit of goods through Poland and Romania, what amount of these products is transported by the railway transport, etc. So, but we should discuss this in more detail. There are also procedural issues of examination by Polish and Romanian border services and veterinary services. So we can have some increase there, but all these tools cannot substitute the seaports. Everyone understands this, including our enemy. But if we need to live and work in such conditions under constant shelling of Odessa and Mykolaiv ports, just to make the grain deal stop. There is a range of representatives of international maritime companies, the masters, the vessels, and their crews that are ready to work, but this will be other risks. And also we should speak about the value of freight. So now we're still developing different scenarios and involving analysts of the national and international levels. So the situation is under scrutiny. And we still should remember about the official meeting between Erdogan and Putin planned for August. And Erdogan also promised to call to his friend Putin, as he often says. And perhaps they can discuss some other models, how to organize grain deals. I have a small clarification from colleagues. 2.5 million tons is the transshipment per month, right? A clarifying question. You mentioned 2.5 tons per month. Yes, this is monthly transshipment. If there is no grain deal, if we need to use Danube ports, alternative routes, how can it affect the price of grain? So we can see the increasing prices because the destiny of this grain deal is still unknown. And if there is no grain deal and we need to change routes, how can it affect the price and the revenue of Ukrainian agrarians? I have some connection issues, unfortunately. I had some connection issues. Yes, there were some technical issues. So the last questions to you. How the absence of grain deal can affect the price on grain and revenue of Ukrainian agrarians if they use only Danube ports and alternative routes to get to the international market? Yes, it can affect the domestic price. The domestic price will decrease. We have some stocks from last years. to the amount of 5 million tons of corn, wheat, etc. But we do not know the precise numbers. And we have the new harvest. The Odesa region has already harvested more than 1 million tons of early grains. This can affect the situation. And we can see the last year's situation when the prices in the international market increase and the domestic price decreases with the increased low expenses for fuel and stock materials, etc. For the last year and a half, we have been telling about the accumulative nature of this problem, but we cannot abruptly change something. And we understand that everything depends on the developments at different front lines and on our victories. Of course, it would be great if we can have the prolongation of the grain deal, because this is the possibility for us to get revenue. Because we need to invest first, and then we expect like several years to get revenue. That's why we have been working on this. But there are some challenges, and the enemy did it on purpose. There was no examination for several months. And on the 18th of July, there was the end of 120 days, and there will be the changes with September futures, with investment, etc. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for being with us today. Sorry for interrupting you, and thank you very much for the information you shared. But we just need to switch to another briefing. That was Pavlo Koval, the Director General of the Ukrainian Agrarian Confederation. The next briefing will be in 8-10 minutes. We will have with us Natalia Gumenyuk, Chief of the Joint Coordination Press Office of the Security and Defense Forces in the south of Ukraine. Please stay tuned.